the Dentalpreneur podcast. Okay, doctor, it's time to put down that handpiece. You're listening to the show dedicated to helping dentists get their lives back. It's time to decrease your stress, increase your profitability, and regain your passion. Now introducing your host, Dr. Mark Costas.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Dentalpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mark Costas. What is up, my friends? I hope you're doing great out there in podcast land today. Hey, listen, I got a really special guest today I wanted to introduce you guys to. Today, let's welcome Bob Spiel to the podcast. He's the founder of Dentist Partner Pros and Spiel Consulting. He helps dental practices excel by building leaders, fostering teamwork, and improving efficiency. With 25 years of business experience, including roles as a hospital CEO and operations director, he brings a systems-oriented approach to dentistry. Bob has spent 16 years consulting, speaking, and coaching in the industry with appearances at events like the Chicago Midwinter and Hinman meetings. He co-hosts the Just Say No to DSO podcast, teaches leadership with Gordon Christensen, and authored Flip Your Focus. Bob and his wife, Judine, live in Linden, Utah, enjoying family travel and outdoor activities with their 6 children and 18 grandchildren. Bob, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today, sir?
Thank you. Awesome, Mark. Thank you.
Wow, what a great footprint you've left on the universe. 18 grandchildren, and who knows how many children they're going to have. So that must be very, very rewarding to get all together and see everything that is on this earth because you exist.
You know, it's pretty cool. And actually, we have to add one more number up to that because we've got 19 now.
Oh my goodness.
My business partner and son-in-law, Brighton Neal, he and his wife had a baby about, 8 weeks ago. Cute little boy, just as golden as he can be. So we keep popping him out once in a while.
Gorgeous. That's beautiful. Congratulations, man. What a great way to live a life and to leave a mark. I'd love to hear a little bit about your history and how you got into dentistry in the first place from the hospital industry.
Yeah, thanks. You know, I've heard it said that dentistry has 2 paths to get here. One is that you find it or it finds you. Mm-hmm. And it found me. I had really no intention whatsoever to climb out of medicine. I was consulting in medicine after these hospital CEO and surgical center CEO gigs had ended. Mm-hmm. And I found that I was really good at it. But there was no heart to the whole industry, and it's gotten even worse.
It has.
And that was almost 18, 19 years ago. I saw nationalized healthcare kind of on the horizon, and I thought, man, with a group like the American Hospital Association advocating for that back in 2004, mm-hmm. my thought was, I don't know if this is a place where I want to be. Mm. But I found that medical consulting was working well. Just happened to have a friend of a friend who's a dental consultant. Guy had been at it for 35 years. His name was Larry Winterstein. Larry was looking for somebody who wanted to buy his business. Instead, he just mentored me, and he kept working, but it was beautiful. And he mentored me for a couple of years and took off from that. And golly, that was 2008. So it was a great time to jump into dentistry when, the whole housing thing was starting to crash.
Yeah.
But Larry just kept reminding me, the cream rises to the top. And it's been a fantastic ride. I love this profession, this industry, and I've added some really great people to my team to help serve dentists even better.
Amazing. That's a cool story. I mean, it does feel as though dentistry is still very much kind of a mom and pop cottage industry in comparison to medicine. I mean, I think medicine is 1.2 million physicians in the United States, and we're just under 200,000 practicing dentists here in the United States. So we're a much smaller footprint, but we have our challenges as well, as you know, being a cottage industry and being, 70-ish% of dental practitioners that still own their own practices. We are in stark difference to medicine. And I've done talks where I'm kind of comparing side by side. The average physician does make more money per year than the average dentist, but the vast majority of physicians now are W-2 employees because of the consolidation that's happened in medicine.
Exactly.
So they're at 37% federal tax rate. So and the average physician works 55 to 60 hours versus the average dentist working 33 hours. So if you're breaking down the overall take-home income by hour, we far outpace physicians. So so many of my colleagues, fellow dentists, went down the path of medicine first and considered it.
Exactly.
And the smart ones shadowed, physicians and talked to physicians and asked about their quality of life and whether or not they'd do it again. And most of them said no,
Yeah.
myself included. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon, and I spoke to a couple of physicians and none of them were happy. Unfortunately, Bob, you talk to a certain segment of the dental population, and I've seen some studies and certain kind of anecdotal studies or surveys that have said that greater than 50% of dentists wish they would have selected a different profession as well. So that's where people like you and I come in and have to remind dentists how good they have it, but also to help to improve their experience in their profession and as a small business owner. So what is it that you see as common themes with the clients that you work with these days?
You bet. Mark, to those 50% that are unhappy, one of the realizations that came to me about a year or so ago was, dental school can teach you how to throw the ball. It doesn't teach you how to play the game.
Good analogy.
And so for those 50%, because I've jumped into a lot of clients who aren't happy. They've reached kind of this zenith of, they're too busy. They've got too much on their plate. They don't know how to control their schedule. They don't know how to lead their teams. And this real, hamster wheel that we've talked about in the industry forever is real.
Really is.
But what I found is instead of just wallowing in that unhappiness and saying, this really stinks, I wish I had done something else. It's to realize that dentistry by itself has one of the most amazing footprints to be able to expand your capabilities, to lead your team, to improve your systems, and continue to make, frankly, more money in less time with less stress by hiring a really great coach.
I agree.
Who can teach you, how to play the game. Because the game itself is not self-obvious. I remember years ago hearing a good friend of mine, Catherine Eitel-Belt, talking at a conference, and I loved her phrase. She said, the hidden game of dentistry. And that always piqued my interest, like, okay, there is a hidden game. It's underneath the surface. But once you know how to play it, you'll never play it the way you first learned it. And I call it sandlot dentistry. It's just pickup games, and you just kind of get beat up, you get thrown in, you get so busy, and then you look at yourself and say, man, I need my life back. And that's a moment of truth, I believe, that is really kind of sacred, because there's this silent cry from the heart that's saying, this isn't what I was expected. This isn't what I wanted. But my response to that is, what got you there isn't what's going to keep you there. That there's a continued set of skills that are so needed to be able to help you continue to raise your game, raise the level of your team's game as well as your dentistry. And that's one of the things that most dentists don't appreciate, unlike practically any other healthcare profession out there. In fact, I don't know of another one where you can continue to raise your clinical skills, and in so doing, continue to raise your ability to both serve people and make more money simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's just, I love this industry because of all those dynamics that it presents.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that made me fall in love with it through Larry Winterstein's eyes was to see the game and understand, that leadership, teamwork, systems, patient service, really great communication, all those things can take away stress and actually help you as a provider enjoy the game again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Really well said, Bob. I was a victim of sandlot dentistry. The first probably 6 or 7 years of my career, I went out there ill-equipped like most of us. Yep. Fortunately for me, it took me 3 years and 21 tries to get into dental school. And during that 3-year period of time, I got into the executive MBA program at University of San Diego, and I bought my first business, right? So I had a little bit different of a perspective when I got into dental school, a little bit older, a little bit more mature, a little bit thicker skin because, I wasn't graciously accepted into the industry, let's just say.
No.
I felt like a little kid that was pushing his face against the glass, looking at, the toy train that he wanted for Christmas and never could have it. Finally, when I got into the store and got the train, it was like, oh, now what do I do with this thing?
Exactly.
So you're so right in that we have just enough time to learn the clinical stuff in dental school, nowhere near enough time to build a sophisticated understanding of how to run a business. It's interesting though, because I'm constantly reminded of how valuable our skill set is because, the default rate for dental loans is less than 1%, which makes us dentistry one of the safest places to lend money to from a bank's perspective, from a lender's perspective. But that does significantly increase. The failure rate increases with each subsequent practice that you own. But for a single practice or a 1 or 2 practice operator, still the default rate is less than 1%. So what's happening there?
Phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. So what's happening there is not that we're sophisticated operators. It's that we have such a valuable skill set that we can charge enough to make a lot of mistakes as an operator and as a business owner. Enough that, even if we run a very poor and inefficient business, we're still making a very good living.
Make it.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love your point, Mark, about school and 7 years and, all that. There is kind of this assumption that once you get out of school, any type of school, that you think you went to school to really learn the answers. And I remember, I'll give a prop to another dear friend and consultant, Kirk Barron, hearing him in a presentation once talking about, that school really is designed to give you a basis of understanding to then go out and ask the better questions. Because he said, that it's not that you're there to learn the answers. You learn how to ask better and better questions because the questions are the answers. And so that's one of the coolest things to me about the whole profession of dentistry is if you're really great at asking those questions and knowing where you are, where you can go and where you can continue to go, both clinically, but also personally, interpersonally, man, the sky is really the limit. I mean, you see that in the type of work that you do and the leadership that you provide and the training that you provide to everybody that's in your network, that really there is no ceiling. The biggest thing about dentistry is to realize the ceiling is what I impose upon myself.
So true. True.
So I think those dynamics are just really, really exciting to be a part of. So I love this industry. I fell in love with it and continue to try to do my best to help doctors and their practices, do more in less time with less stress.
Yeah. I love it. I want to get a little deep with you for a second. And I often, people that have been in our profession and working with professionals within our sphere see this often. And I alluded to it a little bit before where, 50% of the dental population wish they would have chose something else to do. And I'm always just trying to figure out what it is that makes us so distressed. A part of that is being ill-equipped to run a business and the stresses that go along with that. Secondarily, there's, of course, unrealistic expectations by team members potentially, not knowing how to lead human beings. And this is a very human-dependent profession. And then also unrealistic expectations and juggling, patient expectations, I think is a big part of it. Coming into a situation where you feel ill-equipped and charging anyway can lead to a lot of stress and anxiety, et cetera. So,
for sure.
The most recent kind of statistical findings that I came across were that dentistry, although we have the reputation for being the number one profession that leads, white coats as far as suicide, we're number 3 now. We are third to veterinarians, believe it or not, and family physicians, and then dentistry is number 3 now. So at least we don't hold the top spot. But There is a lot of distress in our profession, which is one of the reasons that we inside Dental Success Network, and all of the 1,400 people that are part of Dental Success Network, as part of their membership, get free counseling and psychiatric care if they raise their hand and they need it. That's just part of the membership.
Yeah.
Even still with that, with the amount of statistical evidence that says that maybe 700 people would benefit, if not 1,400 people would benefit from just a little bit of therapy and being able to talk through their frustrations and challenges. We have about 500 people that take advantage of that. So just over 1/3 of the people that have this at their disposal are taking advantage of that particular benefit of membership. So what do you think leads to that level of distress? And do you think that perhaps it is the type of people that are attracted to dentistry in the first place, and it maybe doesn't match with what their expectation was, with what they were expected to be doing on a daily basis in the profession?
Sure. Yeah. I'm a big believer in DISC. I love the DISC profiling system, to understand human personalities and what makes them tick. And I would dare say that, yes, to start with, from my experience, about 70 to 80% of those that are attracted to dentistry are C-type personalities. They're very conscientious. They're perfectionists in terms of their nature. All right. That by itself lends itself to never feeling like you're good enough, never feeling like you can do it good enough. And that creates stress in and of itself. But also there's another element behind that. The C personality loves solo work. They love getting engaged and in the state of flow, but by themselves and not necessarily with a group or with a team.
Interesting.
And one of the biggest challenges that I find in the coaching that I do is to try to help that personality understand that your job as a leader is really to make your team your hands. And how do you do that? What can you delegate? What other things are out there that you can do to relieve yourself so that you're only doing your highest and best, either by talent or by license that you have to do, and everybody else can do the rest. What I call this kind of phenomenon you're describing, Mark, is painting yourself into a corner.
Okay.
And I find that so many dentists do that. It's funny, you said 7 years. I find it's usually about that 5 to 10 year mark where somebody finally cries uncle and says, I need help. Or they don't say anything at all. All right. But if they do say, I need help, yes, the mental health is really helpful. It's great to go get a coach to be able to understand and just see, once again, how do you play the game? How do you make this work? What type of systems can you use that will actually help the whole thing flow better? What's the communication that you can use that will actually make you more effective in treatment presentation, case acceptance, et cetera?
Love that.
And I'd have to say that the number one quality of a really successful practice, and this, it's not the clinical skill. All right. As long as the clinical skill meets the baseline of it fits, it works, you're not in pain. The patient really doesn't know.
Yeah.
What makes that practice a differentiator, frankly, is the culture to begin with, which is a reflection of the dentists themselves, and then the leadership that they provide to their team. So because of this, a few years ago, I actually wrote a book on small business leadership, which highlights a lot of the clients that I've worked with, called Flip Your Focus, igniting people, profits, and performance through upside down leadership. Awesome. It's this whole idea of how do you flip your paradigm around so that you realize that my job is really to work myself out of a job. And what that means is that, again, how can I make my team my hands? How can I turn them into problem solvers? How can I be more clear with my expectations so that everybody knows where they fit and how they fit and what their role is and where we're going together as a practice? And then am I the example of showing appreciation to my team? Because frankly, that's what I've seen is what drives most human behavior, is a sense of alignment and empowerment and trust with their leader or leaders. And then also a knowledge that I'm being recognized for what I do. So I wrote that just to help dentists be able to get a real simple concept of, if I just do these few things, then I can actually play this game well and start to feel that I'm not in a corner anymore. that I know how to play the game and we can actually win the game.
That's great stuff. Great stuff. I think, you alluded to the fact that leadership and culture are really, really important. I think maybe the most important thing at running a successful organization. You're right. The basic clinical needs are it's tickets to the dance. You have to be able to provide that, but
Exactly.
nobody's going to be saying, in a Google review that that was a perfect 3D retaper or 2 mm reduction on that crown prep. Nobody's going to notice that sort of thing, but they will remember how you made them feel. Just like Maya Angelou says. They don't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. So when you're going back to kind of, if leadership is this kind of pillar and a really important part to having a successful organization, if not the most important part, another thing that we're ill-equipped with when we get out of dental school, even if we've practiced, I've seen it happen. You're out for a decade and you've been a practice owner for 8 years and you're still, very deficient in the leadership department. So you as a coach, how do you coach your people to be more effective as a leader so that you can improve the culture and you can get kind of the ship moving in the right direction so that you're more in control of your destiny?
Yeah, great question. One of the things that I've loved being able to do is teach a leadership course for Dr. Gordon Christensen at his facility here in Provo.
Mm-hmm.
And the focus of that really boiled down to first understanding themselves and people. So we would dive into DISC pretty heavily. Because until you really understand personality styles, for instance, all humanity is a big mystery.
Yeah.
But once you understand personality styles, suddenly the veil is gone off the human race and you can get people and understand, oh, now I know why they do what they do.
Yeah.
It's not that it may be okay, but at least you understand so that threat is gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
From there, it's really understanding, okay, how do I need my people to plug in? So the first thing that I learned as a leader is you've got to establish an environment of trust. But then the second thing is clarify the expectations. And so there's literally a process that I go through that I talk about in my book of helping clarify the expectations inside you first. Because that's the biggest irony that I've seen for most dentists is they don't even know what to expect for themselves to be, or their teams to begin with.
Yeah.
So get that down in writing. And it's not that ends there, but it begins there. Then have dialogue with your team and your team members and talk through what I call your roles and goals, which I borrowed from Stephen Covey.
Mm-hmm.
And what are your metrics that are going to let us know, are we succeeding in those roles or goals or not?
Mm-hmm.
Then use the cadence of meetings and accountability to be able to help establish a team of problem solvers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a certain way to do that that's actually really easy. You can get teams together and basically go through a problem-solving list of what's working, what's not working. Decide one of these that you want to tackle, and then just start to break them down into, okay, what would we do different if we could start over again? If we could start this process once more, how do we approach it? And then what does that mean for us today?
Mm-hmm.
Those are a couple of the things that I recommend that I found have really helped dentists start to get this load off their shoulders. And then the third thing is delegation. Just having them really think through what shows up on their desk and what has to be on their desk. And what things can they give away? And not that you give away just willy-nilly, but very, very succinctly and carefully. Who can you train? Who can you teach? Slowly, methodically. Dentists and their relationship with their assistants is one of the greatest examples of delegation.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that team is actually working well with them. And they know exactly their piece, what they're supposed to do and how they do it. And then that just transcends throughout the whole practice.
Yeah.
Those are some of the things that I found that really make a big difference.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So tactically speaking, Bob, so when you are ready to embark upon this challenge of becoming a stronger leader, and we're taking your advice and, hey, listen, let's get the team together. Let's figure out what the constraints of the practice are, what's working, what's not working, what are the bottlenecks, et cetera. What does that look like? Is this an offsite? Is this an hour-long meeting? Is this a half day? Like tactically speaking, what does that look like? How would you guide us towards that?
At least a half a day, often a full day.
Okay.
And offsite is best.
Okay.
You're in a vortex when you're in the practice.
Yeah.
The second you go in there, your mind just starts to think and there's this pressure that's superimposed.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get away to some other place, it allows the juices to flow. And then it creates the backdrop, at least, where you can have some really active discussions.
Okay.
We love to do that with dental partnerships as well. Dentist Partner Pros is really designed to help through the entire partnership life cycle, which is one of the industry's big issues. How do partnerships, how are they created? How do they thrive? How do they transition? And we love to get partners into an offsite situation where they can spend a day and a half, for instance, once a year, just working through, where are they going? What's working? What isn't working? How are your roles? How are you helping the business? How are you not helping the business, et cetera? So they've got a really clear vision in terms of where they're going to go and how they're going to go there.
Yeah. As long as we're talking about partnerships, I mean, the old tired analogy is like it's as important as your marriage, right? It's your life partner is as important a decision as your business partner. I indeed have had partnerships where I spend a lot more time with my business partner than I do my own life partner and my wife. So
Sure.
It's a huge responsibility, and it's a huge decision to make. But oftentimes we go in ill-equipped to have a good, solid, mutually beneficial relationship. And the vast majority of partnerships in business don't succeed because of unrealized expectations, lack of communication, just not being a good match from the very beginning. I think oftentimes we find people that think just exactly the same as us, and many times that leaves a lot of opportunity to and voids in deliveries. If you think exactly the same and you're not a complementary match, and you just are the same exact person, you're going to have the same issues. If you both like to hustle and work really hard clinically, but you like to also kind of avoid the administrative part of the practice, you're going to find yourself in trouble. So what are some of the things, since you run a whole course based on, creating successful partnerships, give us some, maybe if you could, a few pointers on selecting the right partner. And if you've already selected a partner and you're struggling, how do you right the ship?
Yeah, great question. Let me go in reverse order, Mark.
Yes,
if
please.
You've selected a partner and you're struggling.
Okay.
And that happens all the time, doesn't it?
I see it every single day.
See it every single day. It's like, oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
Communication is golden. And we find that just being a third party and helping two dentists sit down together, or three sit down and work through those issues with a unbiased third party, almost like a marriage counselor who can help them talk about these things in a safe environment.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference. Okay.
Indeed.
Without that third party, you can still go out to dinner, you can go out to lunch, you can talk about things, but I think it's really important that they don't get personal. All right. But instead talk about feelings, because really when it boils down to, a partnership is going to thrive or die based upon how you feel about your partner.
Good point. Yeah.
And so one thing that I've coached clients on is to use something that marriage counselors actually recommend. It's called an IFAB. It stands for I feel about this because of this. And just to stay very neutral, but be very honest with each other. And sometimes you can't reach that without a third party being there.
Yeah. Good point.
Okay. So that's the first point, because what's ironic is that we find that 50% of partnerships in dentistry end within 5 years. And 50%. It's because they're not talking to each other.
Wow. That's a really high number. That's a big number.
It's a very, very high number. Yeah,
it
is. The other number that is even more concerning, frankly, and you talk about, further upstream, how do you pick a good partner? How do you start off right? And it's a 75% failure rate that we have in dentistry for hiring new associate dentists.
Oh.
In other words, within a year, 75% of the time, that dentist is no longer in that practice.
Wow.
And that's been going on for decades. Okay. And it's because of, you just brought up the point, we hire people that are like ourselves. And we usually spend more time, or I'll put it this way, dentists often spend more time planning their next vacation or designing their building than they have any thought behind who should be the right fit to be able to help them get to the next level.
Okay. Yeah.
And so what we do at Dentist Partner Pros, and we're really proud of this fact, is for 14 years, we've been hiring associate dentists with an 85% success rate, meaning within a year, they're still there and they're fitting and they're making money. And most of them are on a partner track. How do we do that? It's really simple, but it's also very complex. But we look at this relationship, you use the phrase like a marriage. Mm-hmm. And so you have to ask the question, okay, who is going to fit within this practice? Who's going to fit with this practice owner? And we actually come up with what we call the avatar of the ideal candidate, meaning that we know the characteristics, usually about 20 of them, that we're then going to go out and headhunt, vet, interview, survey, introduce, include the team in the whole process. And in so doing, what we do is we start with the end in mind, and we find that person who is eventually going to be the right fit because they were the right fit to begin with. And it's awesome to see when it happens right, it's magic within a practice. Mm-hmm. All right. When it isn't right, it's a divorce. Mm-hmm. And rarely do we see anything other than it's right or it's a divorce. And that's why, that 75% number has been going on for so long, because most of the people inside the industry, the attorneys, the brokers, the CPAs, and even the sales reps, they're not getting that. They're looking for a body with a pulse and a license, mm-hmm. and go to dinner, see how it feels, see if they fit, but they're not doing the due diligence. So I kind of put it this way. Too often we hire with our heart and then confirm with our head. And I like to flip that and say we've got to hire with our head and confirm with our heart. Mm. And that's what we specialize in doing, is being able to create that hire with our head environment. So in the end, when we can give a doctor a report card and say, this candidate is a 92% fit for all your criteria, we'd now like you to meet them. It sets that relationship up for success to begin with, because they already know, okay, I know all this background about this person. Now let's go test the chemistry.
Yeah, that's really powerful. So,
Thank you.
You guys, do you have that neutral third party? Is that you, or is that somebody that works with you?
That is us.
Your organization, your organization can go in there and say, all right, let's put all the chips out on the table. Here are your expectations. Let's mm-hmm. get down to brass tacks here. All emotion aside, let's talk through this. So you have a moderator that's talking you through that. Mm-hmm. Okay, I like that. That's powerful.
Yep. For the partnership, and then we're also that third party for that hiring, that dentist, because that's another phenomenon that we find. Really successful practices, paint themselves into a corner, but if they're really good, they're also running faster and faster and faster because they've got patients that are just banging on the door saying, let me in, let me in, let me in, mm-hmm. And so not only do they feel painted in a corner, but they feel more burnout than they ever have. And they've heard all these horror stories about, man, don't bring on another doctor because it never works. Mm-hmm. Well, we're here to say that's an old paradigm. Okay, there is a solution. We've got the solution, and we're really proud to be able to use that for clients as well as teach within the industry. Here are the steps to be able to make sure that relationship works.
That's great. That's powerful. Yeah. I want to switch gears just a little bit because I love to talk to people that work with dentists all day, every day, like I do. Mm-hmm. I tapped out of clinical dentistry about 1.5 years ago. I sold my last 4 practices in April of 2023. So, DSI and consulting and coaching has been my full-time gig since 2012, but I was also doing it in addition to clinical dentistry and multiple practice ownership, et cetera. So I've really been able to kind of focus down on the members of DSI and DSN and talk through certain things. The biggest issue that I have seen as of late, and I want to say as of like the last 4.5 years, is the HR crisis that we're facing in dentistry. I'm going to take the hygiene piece and put that aside for a second, but I just want to talk about, the mass exodus that took place, when the pandemic took place in 2020, greater than 20% of the auxiliaries and dental professionals left the profession and never came back. So that left us with a void inside dentistry which threw kind of the balance of power in the direction of, and this is due to supply and demand, in the direction I think now of the workforce and away from the owner doctor.
Absolutely.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, it's terrible with hygiene right now, but it's still the same. There seems to be just a general lack of skilled professionals with experience in dentistry. So we're tested a lot of different things, finding, the right culture fit, coachable people, bringing them on, tasked at having really good training and onboarding. And of course, dentistry is so resilient that we are responding well to the challenge. This mass exodus of people, and we have been able to adjust quite well. However, it's still a big issue in a lot of practices, not having even people respond to help wanted ads, let alone getting people that are a little bit more than a warm body to come into the practice and actually service the patient. So first of all, have you seen this in your client base of dentists that you work with? And secondly, how are you coaching them through this difficult human resources time in our profession?
Yeah. Yes, I have seen it. Absolutely. Everybody has seen it. It's interesting that, at least in my observation, it seems like the pendulum's swinging a little bit back towards the employer now,
True.
Not with hygiene, but with the other positions. The shame of this whole thing is, in my opinion, Mark, that it even had to happen to begin with. All of us don't want to remember COVID. That was like the day the earth stood still, but it stood still for like 2.5 months. And we're all in this weird, no man's land of wondering what the heck is going on.
Yep.
And one of the things one of my mentors taught me years ago was, Bob, in the absence of information, people assume the worst.
Oh, I like that.
And, okay. So using that mantra then, I coached all my clients. I said, listen, you guys, we don't know what's going on, but by golly, we've got to let our team stay connected to the practice. There were some doctors that frankly turned off their phones, shut down their practice, fired their team, and didn't say anything. And candidly, those people that were a part of those practices, those auxiliaries and hygienists, I don't blame them for leaving, okay? They were cut off completely, Instead, for all the clients that I worked with, 2020 was actually one of their very best years they ever had. And no one lost anybody at all, okay? Because they kept them engaged for that whole period with Zoom calls once a week. This is what we know. This is what we don't know. This is what we're doing. This is when we expect we're going to reopen. Just keep the team informed. So I'm going to use that then as a model just for today. How do you become an employer of preference? How do you become that one practice out there that people say, you know what, if there's ever a position there, I want to be there? It circles back to what we talked about earlier: leadership, culture. Those are the keys right there. And that's frustrating for many dentists because, they're going to look at themselves, well, gee, how do I change that? Because there are no shortcuts. But the reality is you can start from where you are today. I will coach my clients all the time and say, listen, hold up a mirror to the things that you love in your practice and the things that you don't. And then when you're done with that mirror, realize that you're responsible for both of those things. That mirror image is you, okay? In a small business, the culture is a reflection of the primary leader or leaders.
Yes.
So with the things that are going well, take credit for it. And the things that are frustrating to you, and you start to unpack that and say, how can I change that about me? Now, that can be frustrating to a dentist who feels like, man, I'm already doing so much. I don't know what else to do. How do I actually start to get my head above the water with these sort of things? You start small. You can't do it all at once, but you can start to make changes. And one of the biggest changes you can make is just admit to your team, I've got some room to go to being a leader, but by golly, here's some things that I'm going to start to do to try to improve this. Beyond that, on the hiring side, there's a whole podcast we could just give about how do you hire well? How do you find the right person? How do you onboard properly? How do you give them a piece of the action so that they're not just thrown in the water and see how they have to swim?
Sure.
How do you put out a good job ad? There's a whole series of different things that can be used. I'll just say this one thing though, Mark. This is out of a presentation that I gave at Chicago Midwinter a couple of years ago called How to Hire, Fire, and Coach Like a Pro. And I asked the doctors to do this one thing. And I said, I want you to draw a bullseye, okay? An inner circle, an outer circle, and one more circle around that. And then I want you to think through your team. And think about those employees that you're proud of. When you think about them being on your team, Who are you proud of? And put them in the A circle. And then who are you happy is on your team? Put them in the B circle. And then who are you indifferent? Put them in the C circle. And then finally, the employees that you have, when you think about them, which ones make you mad? Put them in the D. And then realize those Ds are actually dragging the A's and B's down. Because when the employees, so often dentists are afraid to let them go because they think, how am I going to replace them? But the reality is, if you've got that D employee, and I'm not suggesting just off with your head immediately, you've got to sit down, you've got to set consequences, let them know what's happening, and then set some goals around those things. But if they're not going to improve, you've got to do yourself one of the best favors of all and let them find another job somewhere else. Because the D's are dragging the A's down or making the A's leave. They're pulling the C's into the D zone, and the B's are wondering what the heck's going on. Okay.
Yep. Very much comes back to culture. I mean, that is protecting the culture
really
at all costs. And a lot of times I think that people, because they're compassionate and they have personal relationships with all of their team members, and they see maybe something, a twinkle in their eye or some potential that is like not being realized in these D players. So they give them chance after chance. They don't give them any like consequences for negative behavior.
Exactly.
If they're not in agreement or embodying the core values, they give them pass after pass. And what people don't realize is that your compassion or your flexibility when it comes to somebody like that is really, really putting the entire culture at risk, which is driving away some of the people in those first two boxes, the A and the B circles. So very, very good visual of how to protect a culture. And everybody has encountered D and even E players and let them stay let them stay too long out of, the kindness maybe of your heart or procrastination or your unwillingness or inability to have a difficult conversation. But when you're looking at the total consequence of the entire practice, I mean, it's really, really damaging to a practice if you let that happen too long.
Your own happiness as an owner, for one thing.
Yeah.
And there's this great question out of the book, Good to Great by Jim Collins. And I'll use this when I'm coaching a client on this. And we're talking about the D's, and I'll say, okay, now, knowing what you know today, would you hire this person again?
That's a great question.
There's no maybe. It's a yes or it's a no. All right? And if the answer is a no, then I say, okay, we've got to start to make steps to be able to help them find another job somewhere else. Do them a favor. Okay. They either go up or they go out. Because it is jeopardizing the entire practice. And it's also becoming a monkey that you carry on your back. And it becomes to drag you down as an owner. And it destroys your credibility as a leader as well. Because the rest of the team sees that this person over here is allowed to do such and such, okay, where the rest of us can't, Or you engage in what I call sprinkler management, which is in a team meeting. You've got one person you're trying to talk to, but you critique the entire team on that one thing, and everybody else knows who that's meant for, except the one person who's like totally clueless that was for them. Okay. And that just damages your credibility with your team.
Love it. Well, I mean, maybe the biggest thing in dentistry right now that I'm seeing as a common theme, I'm leaving for the very end of the podcast without enough time to address it, but I'm going to grab back onto that thread, and that's hygiene. Like you said, the pendulum, I do believe, is starting to swing back into the favor of the dental practice owner and away from like total leverage being in the hands of the dental professionals other than providers. But there still is this supply and demand issue and inequity and almost adversarial relationship between hygiene and dental practice owner. And I've never seen it worse in my 22-year clinical/practice ownership journey. I've never seen it this adversarial before. How are you coaching your practice owners through this very difficult time when it comes to lack of hygienists, hygienists that are 2 years out that are like
Making $70 an hour
60
in
to
Seattle.
60 to 70. I had 4 practices in Central Coast, California. That was the going rate, $65 to $75 per hour, when some associates were making $70 an hour. It is crazy. It's crazy. So what are you doing to kind of alleviate some of this frustration and difficulty with the hygiene situation that I call it right now?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. Number one, as a part of Dentist Partner Pros, we're actually headhunting hygienists for clients, okay? Just like we are headhunting associate dentists to be able to find the right fit and bring them in and then set them up for success with their practice owner.
Cool.
We found we're doing the very same thing with hygiene. Sadly, the pool of hygienists is not increasing. All right. There's like a third more dental schools over the past 20 years than there were, in 2004. No more hygiene schools. Why? Because candidly, dental schools make money. Hygiene schools don't.
Right.
If I can have a chair with a dentist, a D4 in that, doing restorative work, or I can have a chair having a hygienist in it, who's going to win?
Yeah.
Obviously, the dental school. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's that imbalance that's taking place. I am a believer in accelerated hygiene in some situations. I don't think it's ideal, but I do believe that if you've got the right combination between a hygienist and an assistant, that can work well. I don't prefer it, but I think it's viable. But Mark, I think the biggest answer to this, frankly, is to change the nature of the relationship between the dentist and the hygienist themselves. For so long, in particular, GPs viewed hygienists as kind of just an adjunct to the practice. It didn't really matter. They weren't a key part of the practice. They were, if I can use a phrase, a necessary evil. Okay. And instead, to change that dynamic and start to create an actual clinical partnership between both of them, so that, as such, the dentist and the hygienist are very much in sync with patient care. They're in sync with periodontal care. They do great handoffs to each other. And the doctor also employs something that I learned from another dental consultant called Think Like a Doctor Sessions, which is actually an opportunity to sit down with your hygienist and monthly go through and just go through radiographs and intraoral photos. When I see this, I recommend this. When I see this, I recommend this. It's trying to make the hygienist actually a part of the bigger game as a whole, instead of somebody who is simply, pardon the phrase, just cleaning teeth. Instead, they become a clinical partner, and as such, they have now a new role within the practice, and that's to help optimize patient care across the entire realm of the practice. And so I know hygienists can't, for instance, diagnose except perio, but they can find all day long, okay? How can that improve that relationship? So together, those two were working in lockstep with each other. And frankly, also, I know, and it sounds ridiculous, but help have the hygienist a little piece of the action in the restorative side of work, so that when they recommend something, they get a little something out of it. Not a lot, but just enough to make them engaged. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's great advice. And I love that the whole idea of calibration between, you're looking at a set of x-rays, intraoral pictures, looking at a patient's mouth, and you almost can complete each other's sentences. You have the same kind of philosophies for treatment. I haven't, this is one of my favorite phrases. I've been working with Dr. Costas long enough to know that he will see this crack here in this distal marginal ridge, and he would suggest a crown for the following reasons. And when those conversations happen prior to you, the doctor, walking into the room, and they've quote unquote teed up treatment, and all you have to do is confirm, your case acceptance goes through the roof, and the value of that particular hygienist goes through the roof. Whether or not whether or not you're dealing with DSOs, and there might be, just a ridiculous fee schedule for preventative. If they are able to tee up treatment and help you close cases, that person still becomes extremely valuable for that practice. So
very valuable. Yeah. And the last phrase that I like with that is, after they tee him up, I will make sure that Dr. Costas will look at this when he comes in.
Yeah. Yep.
That patient is now primed, warmed, ready. That golf ball's on the tee. All you got to do is just knock it off the pin and go,
Yep.
And there's a great book that I had recommended to me a few weeks ago called Grow or Go.
Oh. Never heard of that.
Okay, check it out. I haven't read it yet, but I thought, wow, that's a really compelling title. And it's this whole idea, and I believe in this to my core, that employees will stay when they see that you are investing in them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which again goes back to leadership and culture,
Mm-hmm.
that investment in them allows them to create a much tighter bond to you as a leader. And when they know, for instance, that you are willing to help them continue to grow in their career, and what hygienist isn't going to feel like, man, if I ever have to leave, golly, look at what I can tell my next doctor that I can do. I can help him or her find treatment, get it accepted, and raise the whole production level of practice. They'll be able to write their ticket anywhere.
Yeah. Really good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what a great conversation, Bob. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is what's exciting to me about dentistry, because literally it's so limitless in terms of what is capable. I contrast to medicine. What can an MA do when the doctor comes in the room? What can a PA do when the doctor comes in the room? Very little.
Yeah.
All right. That doctor is on stage the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
In dentistry, you've got the opportunity to flip those dynamics and literally make your team your hands if you can get your head wrapped around that whole idea, and replicate yourself if you can get your head around the idea that we can actually find associate dentists that are going to help you succeed, fit, grow, make money, and eventually become partners. And we specialize in doing that.
Excellent. Well, I can't thank you enough, Bob, for spending the hour with me. What's the best way for people to find you or to reach out to you if they want to continue this conversation?
First thing, if they're curious about this whole associate hiring and hygiene hiring model, I'd have them go to dentistpartnerpros.com.
Mm-hmm.
Dentistpartnerpros, okay, and fill out the contact us form, and we will jump right on that and get in touch with you. They can also email me. Sadly, my Dentist Partner Pros email doesn't work. It's a Microsoft Outlook issue. They can email me at bob@spielconsulting.com, and that's spelled S as in Sam, P as in Paul, IEL, consulting, all one word.com. Or you know what? If they're really anxious and they want to talk, just text me.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to have people do that as well. And I'll give my number, it's 208-520-6900. And my team and I will take care of you, because we are very dedicated to help private practice continue to be private, help dentists continue to thrive and grow, and help them learn how to play the game of dentistry successfully.
Great stuff, Bob. Hey, I'm so appreciative that you took the time to spread some of your wisdom today to our audience. I look forward to meeting you in person sometime soon, and I wish you the best. Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Take care, Bob. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Spiel.